everybody. I'm Suze. I'm with you live, Rebel Women Lead today on Thursday. And sorry, I'm just turning my phone down now as well. The professionalism is astounding, isn't it, Caroline? I'm Suze. I'm a leadership coach that works with high achieving women to regain their boundaries, their confidence, and just smash a bit of the manosphere and get some more gender equity while they're going as well. So just say no to mansplaining and micro behaviours. I am here today with the wonderful Caroline Ridley, and Caroline is the Chief Exec of Impact Initiatives, which is in the UK a Sussex-wide charity that you seem to have your fingers in all the pots. You work with young people, you work with older and elderly people, you work with different service users and groups from other kind of underrepresented areas. And Impact Initiatives has been going since 1978. You're the Chief Exec. Welcome, Caroline, to Rebel Women Lead. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good, thank you. I'm looking forward to this. Just looking at myself on the camera and thinking, I'm not sure I look like a rebel, but I'm not sure what a rebel's meant to look like these days.
I think someone that just kind of stands up for themselves and from others. I think especially in the current climate as well. I think particularly, I started Rebel Women Lead because I was just kind of sick of seeing cookie cutter leadership kind of advice and lots of kind of the usual kind of MBA advice, and just boring people's boring careers as well. And the women I work with often are kind of like, okay, how do I get into a leadership role? Or how do I get promoted? And I am in a leadership role. I'm dealing with all this nonsense from the board above me. How do I deal with it? Mostly micro behaviors or just outright kind of discrimination against underrepresented groups as well. So that's why I started Rebel Women Lead, because it's like, it's not your average style of kind of that very dominant Trump-esque, shall we say, leadership that we still see so much of as well. So you are absolutely a rebel. I wouldn't have invited you on if I didn't think you were.
Despite all the evidence that style of leadership does not work the best, it is still rife in a lot of areas.
It is. And that's how you end up with kind of women and people from other underrepresented groups getting really excited about a particular career or a particular industry, getting into that industry and then falling out of it quite quickly because they're just having to deal with the same old nonsense that, some of us were dealing with 30 years ago is still around. So let's talk about you and get some insight from you. We're going to talk about your leadership style, and we're going to talk more because you're in the community and voluntary sector, what's called non-profit in the US and other countries. I want to get into that as well because there's a certain amount of inequity in that sector in the UK still, particularly around gender equity. So we'll get into that as well. And thank you for everybody that joins us as well. If you want to know anything more about Impact Initiatives, we've got a little website little banner there for Impact Initiatives. Go on to Caroline and her team's website and have a look at the information there. It's all there. And a tiny little plug before we get going as well. I'm at the moment in the midst of a £1 pick and mix sale that my Rebel Women Leading reflective journal is in. If you want one, just go onto my LinkedIn or go onto that website as well. Let's get rid of that bit of spiel for now so we can see each other again. Caroline, I just want to take you back to do you remember what the first day of your first kind of proper job was like? Was it in the community and voluntary sector? Was it a different area? What was it like for you?
No, it was yeah, quite a different area. And one thing I kind of struggled at, what was my first proper job? I, I mean, I did lots of
Yeah.
jobs. But I was always keen to earn money when I was younger, and lo and behold, I've ended up in a sector where the money's never going to be the main driver. But I had lots of jobs in shops. I worked in the Wimpy, the local Wimpy where I lived at the time. But then when I was 18, I went to do my nurse training. At that time, the training, whereas now it's all in university, at that time we did blocks in the classroom and then blocks on the wards. So the first day is quite hard to define. But I was thinking about when I'd just qualified, and they put me on a male medical ward in charge overnight. And I was just thinking, who on earth thinks that that I can do this? That I've yeah, that I'm capable. There's people who were quite ill there. We were getting admissions through A&E, and I was just left. There was a team of care assistants, as they were called in those days, and they were quite loath to see me as being able to lead the shift. A lot of, and quite rightly so, I think, a lot of them had been there a long time, had a lot of knowledge, and had seen lots of us come and go, and were just a bit roll of the eyes. Oh yeah, here's another one, you know. But so it was quite frightening. Um, it was a male ward, and there was a lot of language and behaviour that wouldn't be tolerated now, quite rightly so. Excuse me, I don't think the uniforms that we had, which was a dress with a hat, you always had to have your hat on with the right stripes on, and mine was always falling apart on my hair coming out. But so we did put up with a lot, yeah, a lot of sexism, really, misogyny, lack of respect for the skills that you'd got. But yeah, we got through the night. We still had all the patients we started with and a couple more by the end of it. And I think it was, on one level, it was quite an empowering experience, but it was also a little bit humbling, because you've gone in, right, I'm qualified now, so I'm in charge, and actually it's far more complex than that.
And I think that experience still happens today in terms of, particularly, I partly work at a local university, and particularly with kind of,
Mm,
I remember as well, even when I graduated 30 odd years ago, you know, that sense of like, I've graduated now, I can do this, I know what I'm doing. And then you come up instantly against kind of people like, well, we've been here for a really long time. You don't know what you're doing.
mm.
So it's kind of like gaining
You
that
might just add,
trust. Yeah. gaining that
yeah.
gaining that that trust, and kind of proving yourself as well. So it's really good to hear
Mm,
that was empowering, kind of like just
yeah,
being thrown into it as well.
yeah.
And
Didn't
then
want to
how
go
did
back
you?
to it.
No, especially the little hats.
Yeah. You had to go to a special office to collect your hats, and I'd never got round to it at the right time, so I was always running around looking to borrow one. And yeah,
So you're in the NHS for quite a while then.
not too long. So I qualified and I did a couple of years, and then I left, which was um, quite unconventional at the time. I think everybody that I trained with stayed. Some of them are still there now. Most of them have stayed within that career, though. But I just knew it wasn't the right job for me. I wasn't going to be at my best there. So it was time for me to move on, and I went off and did a little bit of traveling for a while. And then I moved to London, and I did agency work for a little while, so I could pick and choose my shifts, but that was, the job I could earn some money in. So that's what I did. And I then started to work I got a job in the agency office, so then worked in recruitment of nurses. And I was much better at that, I think, that coordination of putting the right people in the right places. and it had much more of a business side to it that I enjoyed as well. So that's where I went afterwards.
So quite a change then as well. And then how did you then end up in the position you're in now, which is chief exec of a not-for-profit organisation?
There's a lot of years in between.
Yeah,
Go through.
That's okay. We'll do the.
I watched that.
Too long. Do not read the TLDR version. What position were you in before you hit chief exec?
So I moved to Brighton and I got a job in the voluntary sector and then worked in various areas within that, and went from being an outreach worker to a team leader, a service manager, and then gradually, worked up to the more senior roles. Just before I got the CEO role, I was operations director, so overseeing the service delivery across the organisation. And then the person who was in the general manager role left, and so it seemed a good opportunity and a natural progression, really.
What did you want to get out of becoming?
There's about 20 years in between that.
Yeah. What did you want to get out of becoming the chief exec? Did you have kind of goals for like, okay, this is what I want to see the organisation doing now?
Yeah, I think I could see where we could go and how we could develop quite a lot of it. And I think a lot of the style of the organisation, the nature of the organisation, our values, I think it had been doing the same in the same way for quite a long time. And that was fine, but the world around us was changing. I think so. For example, with the services for older people, we were the next generation of older people, and so that generation didn't want what the older people had before, and so I could see lots of opportunities to drive things forward. That's, I think, was my main reason for wanting to be in that role. I mean, it was great. It was a promotion. It was a bit more money as well. But it was quite exciting looking at, okay, if we take this as the starting point, what we can do. And most of that we have achieved.
So how in terms of kind of like, because that's lots of not-for-profits and lots of charities don't do that and end up kind of doing the same thing again and again, year in, year out. And over kind of probably the last 5-8 years with financial crises and world crises, lots of organisations in the community voluntary sector have disbanded, have fallen apart. So how was that received in terms of the organisation and your staff in terms of making those changes?
Yeah. I'd say it was mixed. I think anybody who goes into a leadership role and wants to change things, and most people would, I think, there'll always be people who are keen to come with you, who buy into the strategy and the plans that you've drawn up, and there'll be others who just don't like it because they like doing what they're doing and are more reluctant to change. So I think I was talking about this to one of the managers the other day. It's then that way of working where you have to work out who your champions are and work with them, and they will then bring the other people along with them, or people will move on and go to a job that they think is better for them. So there was a period of disruption. I'd like to think positive disruption, and most people came with us, I think, and so it did move on and change. And I think again there was sometimes a bit of what would the word be? A bit of a kind of an assumption that, oh, we're a charity, we get this money, we can do this. And I was trying to instill a bit more enthusiasm into that and a bit more innovation. And yeah, we can do that and we do it really well, but what else can we be doing, and how else can we do this, and have we asked those people who received the service, was that the best way of doing it? And we need to keep moving forward, not just bob along.
And the money's never guaranteed.
The money's never guaranteed, and it's never enough. And I think, again, with the older people services, we had a centre that had been running for years, and it was fine, and people came, but it's based around a cafe, and so we started looking at that, and they were still buying the cheapest instant coffee, and I'm like, no, we need a proper coffee machine, because otherwise, why are people going to come here for a cup of cheap instant? And we need to just build this place that this generation of older people want to engage with.
Yeah, because you're looking now at older people as the younger boomers, and my age, the Gen Xers, and we're a bit more punk, and we want a bit more than. Although it is, I do love a good cup of tea and a slice of cake, I will admit.
Yeah, that's right. And we still do that, but it's nice cake. And it's a proper coffee from a proper coffee machine, and we've got a selection of teas. It's not one massive teapot that's sat stewing for a couple of hours.
Yeah, kind of like very old, kind of like the old WI is kind of like that as well.
Yeah, it's those small things that just change your image and then bring in different people. And that's what we needed to do.
There's a big campaign, this is going a little bit off the point, but there's a big campaign going on at the moment about ageism at work, and it's really interesting to kind of to see that in terms of what people visualize older people as, and kind of what they need out of life as well. I asked ChatGPT to create an image of me, and it included it wasn't far off, but certainly didn't have kind of like my short hair, had kind of longer or grey hair, although it said it was red hair. And I was like, okay, that's quite interesting to kind of see. It's slightly moving, AI is slightly moving with the times, but it's not quite caught up to kind of like the range of people that we are now. We're not all the the blue rinse brigade anymore. No offense to that brigade at all, relatives of mine were absolutely the blue rinse brigade, but it's kind of like it's getting with the times in terms of the older people services. And I'd imagine as well things have changed with the young people's services that you provide as well, in terms of a lot more mental health needs, a lot more kind of couch surfing and homelessness going on.
I mean, we used to, so we've got a building. It's got the YPC, the Young People Centre, which is on Ship Street in central Brighton, and we deliver services from there, and we also have other organisations who are based there delivering there. So that's a great space for collaboration and making that pathway between different services for young people smoother. But there we used to run quite big drop-in sessions where it was quite busy, and it was a place people could come in and they could chat, or they could do a bit of gaming, or there'd be some organised activities. And I think people started voting with their feet with that model, that just wasn't the nature of the support that young people wanted anymore. And so what we've moved to now is a model of very much one-to-one work, and then trying to help those young people into small groups that are often based around a theme, so they've got something in common, because the levels of anxiety in young people, as we all know, are just going up and up and up. And I'm doing it is really very early stages, but working to bring a group of people together, there's a couple of medical staff, service delivery staff, managers, business innovators, and just to start the conversation of how do we tackle this just growing issue of young people and lack of emotional well-being, because as one of the doctors I've been talking to keeps saying, the numbers are just going up and up and up, the prescribing is going up and up and up, and nobody's getting any better. And so we need to stop and rethink that. So I'm really looking forward to getting those conversations going and see what we can do that. And I think even if we can start a pilot project with quite a small group, and get those people managing better, then that'll be a huge success. And then if we can roll it out, even better.
So lots of rethinking in terms of like your leadership, lots of rethinking in terms of how you offer the services and meeting people where they are. You mentioned champions as well. What other aspects of your leadership style do you think that you bring to the role, or have other people kind of said that you bring to the role as well? Because it's often easier to kind of like hear that from other people rather than kind of like, oh, I'm okay, I think I'm all right.
I think I've been told a couple of times recently I'm very pragmatic, which I wouldn't disagree with, but I'd like to think there's more than that. I do deliberate over this on a regular basis. And I'm part of a CEO network, and I think they're all excellent in their roles, but no two are alike. And so you look at how different people in similar roles behave. I always try to be really collaborative. I think that gaining the knowledge from other people who know more than me. I think as a leader you need to understand that you're never going to have all the answers, and you shouldn't ever think that you've got all the answers, but you can surround yourself with people and know who to bring in to get those answers. So I think whilst I might appear to make these pragmatic decisions, there will have been a lot of work behind that and talking to the right people. And I would hope that I'm always open to anybody's ideas and suggestions and feedback. And as an organisation, we very much encourage that. And I think whilst some of those are great and we then implement those into the work, might not agree with all of them, but I will have learned something about that person and how they think and operate. And so it's always worth listening.
Definitely.
And it's never a wasted opportunity
to have those conversations. Definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then the opposite of that, have you come across kind of like bad leadership styles, or have you seen in other leaders over your career kind of like things you just think those aren't working, this isn't the way to go about it?
I think the negatives are leaders who are dictators, who just say, no, this is my way, this is how we're doing it, that's what I think. And they're not paying attention, they're not looking outside. And I think with that you lose the faith of your staff team, lose them entirely, I think eventually. But there then becomes a lack of respect, people's motivation drops. And I think if people don't feel valued, people have got to feel valued, and know that there's some value in what they're doing and where that fits with the wider picture. And if people haven't got that, then things just don't work. They don't grow and they don't develop. I think having really, really clear values is quite crucial, and making sure everybody understands those values, how those values fit with their role, and so how they're expected to work, and so then you people understand the culture of the organisation and whether they buy into that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Values led.
Yeah, I think good leadership. Our chair of trustees is my line manager, and I've worked with him over a number of years, and he's very good at being available, always willing to talk things through, but also at so we agree our strategy. So the strategy is developed through the management team in consultation with the other team members. The board agree the strategy, and then my job is to implement that. And so he's very good at, this is what we've agreed. Your job now is to go and deliver on that. And so holding me to account, but giving me the space to get on with what's my role. And I think that's what most people want.
So speaking of trustees and the way that
Mm,
charities and not-for-profits are set up, so you have a board of trustees, and
mm,
there's still a gender issue in terms of charitable organisations, certainly in the UK. I was literally just reading this
mm,
morning from a report from 2023 that said boards of trustees are 2 men for every woman. And that's despite,
mm,
and a really low number of chief execs as well. And that's despite, 2/3 of employees being women. And it's obviously not taking into account like
mm.
who you're serving as well in terms of service users. So
Yeah,
you've said to me outside of this that you think you're now at kind of like 50-50 gender split for your board, and also
yeah.
more inclusive in other ways as well. So that to me is in terms of like my knowledge of trustees and charities and not-for-profits is very unusual, and that could be seen as like your kind of radical change. So I wanted to find out from you how you achieved that, and what are
Mm,
the benefits of having a more inclusive board as well.
yeah. I mean, there's lots of evidence that having a diverse group of people brings better decisions. It brings quicker decision making and better decisions. So that's kind of a core reason why we would want to have a diverse board. Um, how we've got there, it's taken a little time. I mean, our own male trustees joke about the board being male, pale, and stale, and that was, although I think that's they certainly weren't stale, but they were predominantly white, middle-aged men, and that isn't representative of the people that we work with. They had a great range of skills. We've got an accountant, solicitor, people with huge risk management skills. So a good range of skills, but not coming from a very diverse walks of life. Um, I think it comes from more than just saying, oh, we want different trustees. Let's go and find some. I think it was part of the work of how the organisation is seen overall, and so we had to take quite a hard look at ourselves, and we realised that maybe our image, if you looked at our website, any images that we put out, they were predominantly white. They didn't really reflect the people that we were working with too much. And so we did quite a big piece of work on our website, with the fantastic team at Osomi, I will say, about like how it looked, bringing it up to date, but also who was looking at that and could they see themselves in that? Did it look like a place where they belonged? Um, and so we had the ongoing issue, because we deliver such a diverse range of services. It was always really difficult to get a photograph that was representative of the whole organisation, and so we were looking for images of people with obvious disabilities, people with different ethnic backgrounds, different ages, the whole range. And it's really hard to get a genuine photograph. They'll always look staged if you get a photograph of a group of mixed people like that. We looked at stock photographs, and again, they just didn't look genuine or authentic, and so that didn't feel right. So we decided to have a set of graphics designed, which we could then we could use as we could put them then together as a group or use them individually, and that then started to show the diversity across the organisation. And I think if you we also worked on our values and made sure those were very clear there. And so I think if you're showing the culture of your organisation, you then start to attract the right people, as opposed to just trying to bring them in to something that they probably are like, well, it's just another white organisation. So that was the way around it we went. And we did advertise for trustees, but we were quite specific what skills we were looking for, quite open that we wanted to increase the diversity of the board, but not wanting to be tokenistic, that it needed to be more than people's characteristics that were important to us. And so it's taken a bit of time, but I think the more we go on, and people that we talk to now who want to become trustees are, I think they see the current trustees and think, oh right, they're not, then it's not all middle-aged men. So not that I'm directing the middle-aged men, but they were in the majority. So yeah, I think if people see there's now a difference, then that attracts more people.
So that was really part of like a bigger piece of work for you, and quite methodical in terms of like, how are we representing ourselves as an organisation? Do people feel like they could gain a sense of belonging from either working for you or from using your services? And then, as you said, that naturally also then leads to, say for example, if I was looking to become a trustee of somewhere, I'd be looking at different websites. It's like, if I didn't see myself represented or didn't see the end users for for-profits as well, in terms of like their exec boards and non-exec board positions, if I don't see the people who are using those services or buying those services represented through their marketing or through their website or through what they're saying, like you said as well, in terms of values, then I'm not going to kind of be the one to kind of stick my neck out and go, yeah, maybe I can be the one that makes all the difference. It's like, it needs to start with the organisation to be able to attract different people to it.
Yeah. And we took quite a lot of feedback on the website, and it's never static, because what works now, in 12 months' time there might be something else and people are questioning something. And so it's always being refreshed. And one of the things we did on our values, instead of just listing our values, which we did a lot of work on, and they are genuine, but practically any company could have said, oh yes, that's us as well. And so one of the small but significant changes was we put it into a sentence, so it makes more sense and it explains the how, as opposed to just saying we are these words.
Because everybody does that. It's like, well, actually, it's just buzzwords, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like people's CVs, when everybody says on their CV, I'm passionate. I'm a passionate person. I hate the word passionate because of that. It needs to actually make sense in terms of kind of the context of how that value is being used within the organisation.
Yeah. And we also worked because we work with a lot of neurodiverse people, people with learning difficulties. So we also worked on making a lot of the website easy read. It's got different capacities for making the text larger if people need that. The colour contrasts were all considered, so it's just accessible to more people and makes sense to more people.
So that's certainly with
putting the thing there, and then that attracts the right people rather than trying to do it the other way around.
It's a process, isn't it? Rather than kind of just going, oh, we just need more diverse people in our board of trustees. Let's go find them. It's a bigger piece of work, as we said, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, otherwise it's just tokenistic, and it's not. It doesn't work. And it's always also quite because understand, so the trustees are there as volunteers, and so they need to be getting something for them out of being in that role as well. And that might be career development, it might be that they want to give something back, but we'd also make sure that they're getting what they need from giving their time.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, that's quite, it shouldn't be a radical change within the sector, but it still is at the moment. So are there any other kind of radical changes you would like to see within the non-profit, community and voluntary sector?
I think it's probably some of the toughest times financially that we're in at the moment, and we are, I think, trying to do a lot more work together, collaborate a lot more, which again shouldn't be radical. I think there's lots of organisations who've got staff with amazing skills and have got different resources, and we just need to get the pieces of that jigsaw together a bit better. I think it's and that is starting to happen. I think there's a group of us CEOs who are working towards that. It's a tricky area to work in sometimes because we want to collaborate with each other, but sometimes the way our funding comes in, it makes us compete against each other. So we do have some kind of agreements. There's like, yeah, we know that's kind of what you do. We would never go for that funding with some organisations, and likewise. So there are some unwritten agreements where you wouldn't compete, but it'd be tough to get it all like that, really. But that definitely coming together, putting those pieces of the jigsaw better together is what we need to be doing, I think, at the moment.
I like the sound of that, and that helps everybody in the different organisations then as well, rather than kind of like silo thinking of we're only going to look at this bit or we're only going to look at this bit.
Yeah, and I think it's like saying that, when times are tough, people have to come together, and so that's what we're leading on, making happen.
Would you like to see? I mean, are there any changes in terms? You mentioned about funding. Are there any changes you would like to see in terms of funding? Is it a case that the private sector should be getting more involved in not-for-profits, or the government should be putting more money in? What are your thoughts on that side of it?
I mean, I think the voluntary sector always provides more than we're paid to do, and so we're extremely good value. We're not, and it's kind of controversial, but the pay rises that local authority staff have had recently, we haven't had. And so in a way, I think I'm not saying that people don't deserve those pay rises, but in a way they've priced themselves out. And so we're still able to provide more, I think, and really good value for money. And that needs to be more considered. I think central government needs to probably give it via the local authorities the money, because the local authority know the area, they know the organisations, they know the local needs. For the business sector, it's always a fine balance in investing in a good fundraiser for your charity and investing in income generation and making sure as much money as possible goes into direct service delivery. But you're not going to have any direct service delivery if you haven't got good people with good skills bringing that money in. And there's lots of different ways businesses can help, and it is growing. More and more businesses are getting involved, and some of that's anything from large donations to letting us use one of their offices for our board meetings, or giving staff some time off to come and help. I think the big ask of the businesses would be talk to us about what we really want, because sometimes we get offers of like, we can come and we can do this, and it's like, well,
the parachuting in for a bit of press and a bit of kudos.
And while we always appreciate any help and support, that conversation about, right, we've got this resource, whether that's people or money or equipment, come and talk to us about what would be the best help.
Do with rather than to.
Yeah.
And we're just going to finish going back to kind of your role and where you're at the moment in your career. For people who are not about to say young people, but it's not necessarily going to be young people. My other half's moved over to the community voluntary sector in his late 40s. So for somebody moving into the sector, is there any kind of like tips or advice you'd give? Certainly kind of like in UK.
Yeah. I mean, I think it applied anywhere really, but I would say do your homework, listen, learn. Don't be afraid to ask the questions, even if they seem really basic, because there'll often be somebody else in the room that doesn't know that either, or you're just going to make a fool of yourself if you pretend you understand something and you don't. And I think confident leaders aren't afraid to ask questions. I'd say observe others and take the behaviours you like and see how others behave and learn from that as well. And I would say define and stick to your values. I think sometimes it's very hard to think, oh, we need to go off and do something else. But then if you've got those values really well defined and you keep coming back to those, then you can refer anything that gets thrown at you to those.
I really like those. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Caroline. This has been really, really good chat.
You're
I'm
welcome.
aware I took us off the point a little bit, but kind of like I think for me, with past experience in the community voluntary sector as well, I was really interested in kind of getting your take on it, especially as I think it was one in three, something like that. I'll have to have a look, but it's a small number of women that are chief execs, kind of like of charities in the UK, certainly kind of like the top income generating ones.
Yeah. So I imagine possibly more in this sector than in others, for good reasons and bad.
Yeah, I think the thing with the community and voluntary sector is that it's got a really high number of women employees and women volunteers, but a very low number at that top level in terms of kind of it's slightly different because in terms of trustees versus exec boards, but certainly in terms of kind of like leadership level. I'm not going to say it's it's a shit picture all round, but it's not far off. There's still like
you keep chipping away at it
to get exactly, to get somebody who's when people say like, oh, to get gender equal organisations, it's going to take like another 100 years. I was like, well, I'd rather see the glass as a bit more half full than that. It's like you say, chipping away at it, and the more each of us do and act as kind of champions and as role models to others.
And encourage the younger team members as well to aim for that.
And I really liked what you said about kind of being values led and sticking to your values, and that's certainly when you said in terms of younger team members, certainly kind of I don't want to kind of compartmentalize people if you're talking in terms of generations, Gen Z and now kind of Gen Alpha coming up as well. Want to be working somewhere where the values of the organization resonate with their own values. Which is great to see. It is great to see. We just need more organizations values led than there is at the moment. Thank you so much for chatting with me, Caroline.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been great.
I hope everybody enjoyed listening in, and people who are watching on YouTube and on LinkedIn can watch it again and share the post as well. And as I said, if people want to know a bit more about impact initiatives and the work they do, what Caroline does, connect up with myself or Caroline on LinkedIn, and also have a look at the Impact Initiatives website. Thank you so much, Caroline. It's been a joy.
Thank you.
I will end the stream so that everybody can go and have their lunch.
Okay.